We are continuing the UFC 308 fight card. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. Let's get right into it. But before we do, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, and follow, and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload. Let's go. In this one, we have Dan Ige versus Lerone Murphy. Dan Ige is 18-8. His country is United States. He stands at 5'7" tall. He weighed in at 157 pounds. He has a reach of 71 inches and a leg reach of 38 inches. While Lerone Murphy, on the other hand, is 14-0-1. His country is England. He starts at 5'9" tall. He weighed at 158 pounds in his last win, has a reach of 73.5 inches and a leg reach of 39 inches. Lerone Murphy has a 2-inch height advantage, a 2.5-inch reach advantage, and a 1-inch leg reach advantage. Although Dan Ige does have the record, he has more losses and more wins, but Lerone Murphy hasn't lost. He's had a draw and he's only had 14 wins. Therefore, Dan Ige has the more experience, but Lerone Murphy is currently undefeated and therefore could be going in very dangerous because he wants to protect his record, of course. While Dan Ige kinda has nothing to lose in this fight, could just throw it all out there and see what happens. But let's move on to the win buys to see how they've got it done in previous fights, to see how they can get it done in this one. With Lerone Murphy having a 50% KO TKO, 0% submission, 50% decision, with an average fight time sitting around 14 minutes and a knockdown average of 0. While Dan Ige, on the other hand, has a 33% KO TKO, 28% submission, 39% decision, and an average fight time sitting around 13 minutes, and a knockdown average of 0 as well. Dan Ige is a fairly well-rounded fighter, with most of his wins coming by decision, but if we take that out of the equation, you can give Dan Ige KO and TKO, but I feel like Dan Ige for this fight should probably try and get it down and try and go for submissions, because Lerone Murphy, we haven't seen his grappling. At least we've seen his grappling in fights, but we haven't seen it on the stats yet. So right now, Lerone Murphy, if he gets taken down, he can get submitted. Right now, based off of the stats, Lerone Murphy is just a striking type of guy. But let's move on to significant strikes to see how they performed on the feet in their last fight. With Lerone Murphy having an average of 5 punches landed per minute, 54% significant strikes, an average of 3 punches absorbed per minute with a 60% defense, while Dan Ige, on the other hand, has landed an average of 4 punches per minute, 45% significant strikes, an average of 4 punches absorbed per minute, and a 57% defense. I was kind of expecting that, you know. Lerone Murphy has the more knockouts. It appeared that he did a lot better on the feet, and basing it off of these stats, he has done a lot better on the feet. He had the higher output, he had the more significant strikes, he absorbed less, he had a better defense, while Dan Ige had a worse output by like 1.4. He had a nearly 10% significant strikes worse percentage. Is that how you say that? I don't know. That's not right. Oh well, it's going in now. He absorbed an average of 0.91 more. That's not the average, that is just the complete fact. It's 0.91, I do believe. And he had a 3% less defense. So his defense wasn't too poor and his absorbing wasn't too bad, but the output kind of meets the absorbing. So on the feet, it seemed to be fairly close for him in his last fight, except his significant strikes was a lot worse. But let's move on to grappling to see how probably Dan Ige should get it done and see how well that Lerone Murphy performed in the grappling in his last fight. With Dan Ige having an average of 1 takedown, 26% takedown accuracy, 59% takedown defense, and a submission average of 0. While Lerone Murphy, on the other hand, had an average of 2 takedowns, 52% takedown accuracy, 46% takedown defense, and a submission average of 1. Based off of that, Dan Ige did fairly poor on the feet. He did a lot better on the feet than he did in the grappling. He also had fairly good defense though. He had good takedown defense. Based off of his stats, Dan Ige had a better takedown defense than Lerone Murphy. He had a worse takedown accuracy and he had less takedown average. Lerone Murphy attempted quite a few, got a few takedowns. He got above half of his takedowns. Dan Ige got less than half of his takedowns, although Lerone Murphy's last opponent got more than half of his takedowns, while Dan Ige's opponent got less than half. Therefore, I feel like Lerone Murphy, putting all the stats together, Lerone Murphy's the one who wants to keep it on the feet, wants to keep it striking, keep it at range, try and not let Dan Ige get in close. But based off of the grappling, it looked like he did fairly well on the grappling. But I still think that Dan Ige would do a lot better in the grappling. So I think Dan Ige should get on the inside, try and get the takedowns. You know, he had a better takedown defense, so he can use that to his advantage and then try and get the trips in. Get in the clinches to get in, I don't know, single legs, double legs, whatever form of takedown he can get that he has a knowledge of, and go for it. But that's just my thoughts and my opinions. What do you guys think? Who do you think wins and how do you think they win? Apart from that, I'll catch you in a bit. Take care and peace.